Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Anita Winters and I do This video is one of your most requested and I have not done it much recently, just little snippets here and there. But today we're going full into a creative process. We are in my kitchen because today we are creating in bulk. Feel free to follow me along on this journey or just sit back, relax and get inspired. Here is what I will be using today. It's a hot press watercolor paper. Also, I'm using calligraphy and drawing inks. Some of them just a color, and these little ones, they got a bit of a golden dust mixed in it. If you're following me for a while, you know I really love using those. I've got masking tape, but masking tape is optional. Box of different brushes and a spray water bottle. My little spray bottle has broke recently, so I will be using this, which is a little dangerous because it's automatic. You just press one and it goes everywhere, but it's gonna be fun, so we'll see. So this is my choice for today, but feel free to use anything else you've got handy. Crayons, watercolors, acrylic paints, pencils, pens, gel pens, anything you find, anything you like working with. So it doesn't have to be this. I start with preparing some paper. As I said, today we're creating in bulk, so I'm taking out 5 sheets. These are approximately A3 format, which is a size of 2A4. If that makes sense. I prefer working on the bigger paper. It's not very big, but still it gives me more space to create. But if you're a beginner, I suggest starting with a smaller size, maybe A4 or even A5. Masking tape, as I said, is not a must. It's up to your preference, really. I like using it because I like this clean edge look. Also, if you decide to frame it at some point, you can cut it off or fit it to the frame size easier. And today I am trying out a different masking tape. This one is a low impact and is suitable for delicate items or wallpaper and such. As I often damage the paper when pulling it off, and I would normally use a hairdryer to remove the masking tape, but hopefully with this one I won't need to. And indeed it does look like low impact. Look, it can't barely stick to the table. I hope it works. I don't have anything in mind, no ideas about colors or shapes. So I just simply pour some ink onto the paper and see where it takes me. I made few drips here and there. I've got a foam brush, but honestly, any brush will do. All lines and shapes are random, or should I say organic. So just letting my hand move chaotically, trying not to concentrate on how it looks like. Not wanting to waste ink, I'm applying it onto the other sheets as well, since I had so many laying around. If you start realizing that you are trying to control the process, try to switch hands or turn paper around or stand on the other side of the table, or all 3 at once. I also had this white ink that's almost dried out, so I figured now would be a good time to use it before it's completely gone. One of the pieces seemed a little too dark, so I added some white to lighten it up. As you can see, I don't keep cups of water to rinse brushes. I just use each brush once, set it aside and grab a fresh dry one. One section got too wet, so I use a kitchen towel to absorb the extra paint and water. as this spray bottle is not easy to control and it sprayed way too much really, but kitchen towel not only cleaned it up but also created some interesting patterns. So don't be afraid to experiment with this technique. It can lead to great effects. For the other two pieces, I decided to try a different color scheme, completely unplanned, just going with my gut. I should have probably covered my table first, but well, too late now. I used another sheet of paper to pick up the excess drips, so nothing went to waste. In the past, I used to spend a lot of time perfecting my backgrounds, focusing on lines and details, but eventually I realized it was mostly pointless since many of those details would disappear under the layers and layers of acrylic paint. Now I treat the background as a foundation to set the mood and provide basic guidelines for the final piece. So if your background doesn't turn up the way you envisioned, don't stress. It's not finished yet and there is always room to adjust. What matters most is enjoying the creative process. To start with these two, I sprayed the paper sheets with water, then dripped some ink onto it. I swirled it around, letting it form natural lines, shapes, and patterns. And from there, I use a brush to refine it, spreading the ink across the sheet to cover it entirely. It's such a simple yet satisfying process, allowing the colors to flow and blend organically. I'm filming this video in October, and it's so interesting how unintentionally I chose such autumnal colors like orange, purple, and black, and I just realized it now. My spray bottle is overzealous, but kitchen towels saved the day again. In the end, I ended up with 5 bright, shimmering artworks. They can stay as they are, but I prefer to add some intricate details later and really immerse myself in the process. To save time and avoid making a mess again, I made all 5 in advance. So now, whenever I'm ready to work, I can just pick one that speaks to me. And today I'm choosing the green one. It has a happy, vibrant energy that feels like something we all need a little more of sometimes. Next step is less messy, and I get to use my favorite tools, paint pens. I have a lovely folder filled with Posca pens and another box with variety of paint pens that I acquired within years. Most of them are acrylic, though I do have a few oil-based ones. However, the oil-based pens are a bit smelly and not ideal for paper, so I tend to stick with the acrylics. I prefer paint pens because after experimenting with different mediums, I've found they suit me best. And the main reason? They're virtually mess-free. I don't have to worry about washing brushes, ruining my clothes, or accidentally painting the walls and everything around me. So since I work in my living room, not a dedicated studio, I need to keep the space tidy. I also have limited space and limited time, so paint pans are perfect for my setup. I can pick up my piece whenever I find a spare moment, without the need for any setup or preparation. That's not to say I don't love other mediums. Paints and canvases are wonderful to work with, and I truly enjoy using them occasionally. But they're not practical for my everyday routine. On top of that, I have 2 kids, and whenever they see paint, they're eager to jump in and get involved. So using paint pans helps me avoid that extra chaos. So paint pans have become my go-to choice for all these reasons. That said, I encourage you to explore other options and find what works best for you. Whether it's simple crayons, pencils, or something more advanced. There is no right or wrong. Art shops are full of colorful, exciting materials waiting for you to try. So don't be intimidated even if you have never used something before. These days, it's easy to learn. A quick YouTube tutorial and a bit of practice can take you a long way. Remember, the most important thing is to find what brings you the most joy and embrace it, no matter how simple or complex it might seem. Everyone starts somewhere. Let's get back to the piece. This bright, obscene green radiates some fresh, vibrant energy. It reminds me of crisp grass or fragrant herbs, or even first leaves of spring. Inspired by that, I started drawing some leafy patterns. And as I mentioned earlier, creating a background with broad lines and bold colors helps set the mood and guides your intuition for the next steps. I'm often asked how I come up with my patterns, and to be honest, it's not something I consciously plan. I've been doodling and experimenting with intuitive art for about 3 years now. Is that a lot? Maybe not compared to some, but in those 3 years, I've created countless pieces and studied even more works by fellow artists. When you immerse yourself in the process daily, the ideas just seem to stick. They become part of your mental library, ready to surface when you need them. But this hasn't always been that way. In the beginning, I often found myself stuck, unsure of what to draw next. And when inspiration felt out of reach, I would turn to Pinterest or Instagram for help. Sometimes I would find a color palette that sparkled an idea, or I would see a pattern that I could incorporate into my piece. And there is no shame in seeking inspiration. It's all about finding something that resonates with you and using it as a stepping stone for your own creativity. Over time, I realized that patterns and ideas come more naturally when you allow yourself to explore and experiment freely. It's not about copying what you see, it's about letting those visuals influence and guide your own unique work. I've learned that trusting your intuition and letting your hands move instinctively can lead you to the most surprising and satisfying results. So if you're wondering how to find patterns or where to begin, don't overthink it. Draw what feels right and don't be afraid to look around for inspiration if you need a boost. Patterns can come from anywhere. A leaf outside, a crack in the pavement, or even the texture of fabric. With time and practice, you will build your own mental library of ideas, and the process will feel more intuitive. Remember, art is a journey, and every piece you create is a step forward. Another approach I found helpful is to let go of overthinking and allow intuition to take the lead. Much like meditation, the goal is to quiet that critical voice in your head and simply let your hand move across the paper. Don't worry about making something perfect. Instead, let the patterns and shapes emerge naturally. Sometimes I find it helpful to step away for a moment after laying down the initial lines or colors. When I return with fresh eyes, I often notice unexpected forms. Maybe the hint of a leaf, a swirl that looks like a vine, or abstract shapes that spark a new idea. From there, it's about building on those forms. I don't try to impose a rigid structure. Instead, I let the artwork guide me. This process is less about control and more about trust. Trusting your instincts to create something meaningful, even if you are not entirely sure where it's heading at first. If you ever feel stuck or unsure, remember that technical skill isn't the most important thing here. Intuitive art is about exploring your imagination, not achieving perfection. The more you practice, the more you will learn to see patterns, forms, and ideas within your work that you might not have noticed otherwise. This practice can also help quiet feelings of self-doubt or those imposter syndrome. It's a reminder that art is as much about self-expression as it is about technique. Don't shy away from mistakes either. Some of my favorite pieces have come from unexpected splashes of ink or unplanned marks. Those moments can be the seeds of something truly unique. Intuitive art thrives on experimentation, so give yourself permission to play and explore without judgment. Over time, this process can become more than just a creative exercise. It's also a way to connect with your inner self, unlock new ideas, and build a deeper connection with your artistic voice. While working on this piece, you often see me starting with black shapes and lines before layering color on top. This is one of my favorite tricks for making colors appear more opaque and vibrant. The inks I use for my backgrounds are very intense and can sometimes, or most of the times, literally every time, bleed through lighter colors. While that effect can be beautiful and worth keeping, there are times when I want stronger contrast or a more polished look. That's when I rely on my black paint pan. By adding black first, I can effectively block out what's underneath, creating a solid base for the next layer of color. This not only enhances the opacity of the colors, but also allows me to refine areas where the background feels too overwhelming. It's like hitting a creative reset button, perfect for fixing any unwanted patterns or marks. For instance, there are times I'll draw a pattern that feels right in the moment, but when I look at it the next day or 5 minutes later, I realize it doesn't work with the overall piece. And instead of scrapping the entire section, I simply cover it with black, let it dry, and start fresh. It's such a simple solution, and honestly, nobody's gonna know. Well, unless you tell them. This technique also gives me the freedom to experiment without fear of making irreversible mistakes. It's all part of the creative process, isn't it? Building layers, making adjustments, and letting the piece evolve naturally. If you are ever stuck or unsure, a black paint pen can be your best friend for turning mistakes into opportunities. When I first started exploring intuitive art, my go-to color was black. There was something comforting about the simplicity and boldness. I would often fill my pages with some sort of zigtangle patterns, structured, repetitive, and almost meditative in their creation. At the time, it felt natural to lean on black as a foundation. Maybe because it represented a safe space to express myself without overthinking. But as I kept creating, I realized something was missing. While black provided structure and depth, it didn't evoke the same emotions as color. So I began experimenting with adding hues. And that's when everything changed. Colors brought energy, movement, and an entirely new dimension to my work. They weren't just visual additions, they transformed the mood of my pieces and, more importantly, my own mood as I worked on them. I noticed that certain colors had the power to uplift me, turning a negative or neutral state of mind into a more positive and vibrant one. Warm tones like oranges, yellows, and pinks brought a sense of joy and optimism, while greens and blues added a calming, grounding effect. Even bold, contrasting colors like purples and reds injected a sense of excitement and adventure into my process. This discovery made intuitive art even more fulfilling. It wasn't just about creating something visually pleasing, it became a tool for emotional transformation. By consciously choosing colors based on how I wanted to feel or what I wanted to express, I could channel my emotions and shift my mindset. Over time, my pieces became brighter, more dynamic, and full of life, reflecting my growing confidence and the joy I found in creating. Now I embrace both black and color in my work. Black still has its place. It's essential for contrast, grounding, and giving my pieces structure. But it's the interplay of black with vibrant colors that makes intuitive art so exciting for me. It's a reminder that even the darkest beginnings can lead to something bright and beautiful. If you are just starting out, I encourage you to explore how colors make you feel and let them guide your journey. You might be surprised at how transformative they can be. The beauty of intuitive art lies in its ability to reflect your inner world while simultaneously shaping it. When I started incorporating color, I noticed it didn't just brighten the page, it brightened my perspective. I began to see how every hue, every brushstroke, and every pattern I added told a story. One that wasn't pre-planned but revealed itself as I worked. It's like the art was teaching me something about myself in real time. I also realized that the act of choosing and layering colors became its own form of self-care. On days when I felt drained or overwhelmed, I would reach for soothing tones like soft blues, gentle greens, or muted pastels, and let them calm my mind. Other times when I needed energy or inspiration, I would lean into fiery reds, oranges, or electric yellows. The physical act of applying these colors felt almost therapeutic, as if I was literally painting my way out of a mood and into something new. One of the most surprising things I've learned from intuitive art is how forgiving and flexible it is. It's not about creating a masterpiece or following a set of rules. It's about allowing yourself the freedom to explore. Some days I start with a specific idea or feeling I want to express, but more often than not, I let the process unfold naturally. If a section feels off or doesn't resonate, I just layer over it, add a new color, or adjust the pattern. There is no such thing as a mistake, only new directions to explore. I've also found that working this way has helped me let go of perfectionism. When you embrace intuitive art, you are giving yourself permission to play, to take risks, and to focus on the experience rather than the result. It's incredibly freeing. This mindset has spilled over into other areas of my life, teaching me to be more adaptable and to find joy in the unexpected. As I continued to grow in this practice, I began to see how my art influenced others too. Sharing my pieces, whether with friends, family, or online, opened up conversations about creativity, self-expression, and even emotional well-being. It's amazing how something as simple as a splash of color or an abstract pattern can resonate with someone else and spark their own inspiration. If you're thinking about trying intuitive art, start small. Grab a pen, some paper, and maybe a few colors that catch your eye. Don't worry about the outcome, just focus on the act of creating. Let your hand move freely, let your intuition guide you, and see where it takes you. It's not about making good art, it's about making art that feels right for you. And who knows, you might just discover something transformative, not only in your work, but in yourself. And here comes the experimental tape. Well, unfortunately, it didn't go as planned, and I ended up ripping the paper a little. But that's all part of the process, right? Mistakes happen, and they often lead to new solutions. Speaking of which, this brings me to a handy little trick I use to remove masking tape without damaging the artwork. A hairdryer. If you gently warm up the tape with hot air, the glue softens and the tape unsticks easily. Someone recommended this to me a while ago. I wish I could remember who. So if it's you and you're watching, thank you. This tip has saved both my nerves and my artwork countless times. If you have any other ideas or suggestions for removing masking tape without hassle, I'd love to hear them. So drop them in the comment below. And here it is, the final piece. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed creating it. My goal is to inspire you to dive into your own creative journey, whether it's with intuitive art or something entirely different. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really supports the channel and keeps me motivated to share more. Thanks for watching and happy creating.